Testing 1, 2, 3. Looks like the volume's on here. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Welcome to Milton's Briefs. Today we have a really hectic and crazy news day for finance. We have so much to cover here. First of all, if you're interested in finance recaps, market recaps on the market, every single day, or at least almost every single day, I'm going to go live in the evenings. I don't have a definite time yet, so I will let you guys all know the definite time when I'll go live very soon. So please like, share, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts below. So here we go. Today's topics are a lot, and I'm going to pull up my screen here so you guys can all see what is going on here. So hold on for 2 seconds here. Let's see. So let me pull up my documents. And yeah, we have a lot to get into. So I'm going to share my screen in about a second. Here we go. Great. So up here. Okay, so I don't really care about the title. Okay, so the first topic we're going to cover, and this is a really big deal, is the massive sell-off that happened today. So stocks sold off massively. That's the first thing we're going to go into. And what happened? The Dow sunk and S&P sunk as well, and the Nasdaq sunk. So all the major indexes in the United States stock market sunk a lot. The Dow Jones fell nearly 1%, S&P fell around 1.2%, and the Nasdaq sank almost 2%. So major sell-offs. The Dow, I believe its lowest point was down 500 points. I think it ended the day a little bit over 400 points down. The market recovered very little after 3:30. They tried to recover a little bit, but still ended negative on the day. So yeah, so that's something to cover. We're going to cover. Next is Netflix fell over 10% today. So that's something we're going to cover as well, due to their very disappointing earnings report that came out during the day. We're going to cover meme stocks as well. That's had a huge resurgence today, something that I really didn't see coming at all. And then we're going to talk about gold continuing its decline. So it had a major decline yesterday, and today it's continued sell-offs after hitting a career I'm talking like a job, after hitting all record highs, surpassing $4,000 per ounce, setting records due to the President Trump administration's I can't put it really lightly, just the instability that the Trump administration has really caused since being in office, especially with our bilateral trade negotiations with both adversaries and allies alike, and the shift away from the US dollar from other countries. And we're going to get into all of that. I'm not going to go into it right now, but those are one of the major reasons that gold has been on the rise for pretty much 2025 and beyond. So gold had, and again, gold had its worst day yesterday in more than 12 years intraday. So it's had a major sell-off yesterday, and then today it continued its sell-off. Next, we're going to cover is President Trump demanding cattle ranchers lower prices. Again, you can't tell business people to lower prices because that seems to be a little extreme in my opinion, because that's not how businesses work, but that's one of the news stories. And yeah, so I'm going to start with those stories. We'll cover the other ones later. So let's get into it right here. And also, Tesla had a major disappointing earnings report today also. So we're going to start off with the sell-off that occurred today. So a little bit iffy here. I don't know why this is iffy. So I think they took off. Here, we're just going to the Tesla earnings reports right now. So Tesla had missed on its earnings Q3. Again, this wasn't a surprise because Elon Musk stated in the past that they were going to have a rough couple or few quote unquote few quarters due to the EV mandates or tax credits, excuse me, that the government is not having anymore in the big beautiful bill that President Trump passed back in the summer. So for those of you who don't know, Elon Musk was campaigning for President Trump. I mean, we all know that from everything we've seen, campaigning for President Trump, had his back, all this stuff, was in the government. And one of the biggest reasons he was endorsing Trump and doing all these things was that he could have his EV government subsidies so that he can have more earnings per share in the stocks and all that. So the reason why they fell off back in the summertime was because President Trump said he's not going to include these EV mandates or government subsidies, excuse me, I keep mixing that up, in the government bill. So as we see right now, clearly this is affecting earnings reports. So for the quarter, Tesla reported Q3 revenue of $28 billion versus the $26 billion expected. So that's actually the good part here. It's 1% jump from a year ago. So that part's good. So let's see. I don't know why it's saying, let's see. I don't know why they're saying that's a bad thing. Let's go into a video analysis of Tesla because I didn't get to research Tesla too much today. So let's get into it. So Tesla earnings reports. This is do earnings. Obviously, the actual earnings call is usually like an hour long. We don't need to watch all that. That's why you got me here, just to cover the basics here of what happened. So let's see.
Hi, Morgan. It is a beat on the top line and a miss on the bottom line for Tesla. The company bringing in revenue better than expected, $28.1 billion. The street was expecting $26.36 billion, but EPS comes in at 50 cents a share. 50 cents a share. The street was expecting 55 cents a share. So not a huge miss, but it is a miss nonetheless. We're going to go back through the numbers, guys. Hopefully we'll get some more details in terms of future plans, future obligations, and the kind of concrete details that investors are looking for when it comes to things like robotaxi, autonomous vehicle development, et cetera. We'll let you know when we come across some of those nuggets that are worth flashing.
All right, Phil, thank you. We'll be back to you. Shares are down about 1% right now. Barb, want to get your reaction to this, especially since Tesla is not necessarily a name that trades on the fundamentals here.
No, it doesn't. I mean, 80% of their revenues are from autos, and yet it's at a 250 plus PE on forward earnings. And it's really on the hopes that it's the robo taxis, it's the robots, it's this AI play, which frankly I don't see. And the fact that they beat on revenues, it's a question of how much in the pull forward for the EV credit that was expiring September 30th. And I think that's probably what the explanation is there.
That's the EV credit. That's the major fall down for Tesla.
And of course, with the earnings miss, that could be pricing. Because even the storage and battery part, which is a nice high growth area, although the last quarter it was down 7% year over year, it's still only 10% of revenues. And of course, you're not getting anything from autonomous driving yet or robots.
Okay, so
those
we're
are
gonna
still sort of pie
this.
in the sky and lots of talk.
Okay. So let's go into the actual sell-off that occurred, because this is one thing we need to get into right here. Of course, this is all from before. All right, looks like these are just old videos here. So we're just going to go right to the source here of Yahoo Finance. They always do a great job with covering these things. Again, the Dow Jones fell at its lowest point was over 500 points, came back to end the day around 400 points. S&P 500 fell about 1.2%, NASDAQ 2% almost. So, we're just going to go into this right here. Here we go. This was the article I was looking for. They kind of replaced it with the Tesla earnings. So we're going to just cover this right here. So stock market, everything was down. Netflix sunk a lot due to missing earnings again. So Tesla missed on some earnings metrics, not everything, but Netflix was the biggest disappointment of today, falling as low as 10% at its lowest point today. So yeah, again, here we go. So the Dow recovered a little bit. Now it fell over 300 points. So it ended the day around a little over 300 points. So it did recover. The S&P lost around a half percentage point. NASDAQ ended on 1%. So the notes I had was around mid-afternoon. This is the notes at the end of the day. Gold recovered some losses after booking its biggest one-day decline in over a decade on Tuesday. Bitcoin plummeted below $110,000. So again, another decline that we've been seeing. And again, market corrections are natural, especially around September, October in the year. This is something that's normal. In fact, even with gold, this is something that I've been expecting, because even for a good investment like gold is I'm not an investment advisor or expert, so don't take these words as gospel, but gold is something that has been historically used to hedge against inflation, and the dollar being a fiat currency, and seeing how inflation has spiked, hitting about 3%, 2.9% to be exact, in the latest CPI report, which was about a month ago, maybe a little over than that. Gold has been skyrocketing because many investors, foreign investors, I think it was global banks, are all investing in gold to combat the US dollar's fall. So this is something that isn't a surprise to me, that the gold is declining. But here's the thing, it's not declining because it's a bad investment, but because it's been skyrocketing, 65% growth year to date. And this is something that is inevitable with any investment. We've seen this with AI. Excuse me. AI is considered a very smart and good investment for many investors. Everyone says, oh, NVIDIA, invest in NVIDIA and all that. So when we see NVIDIA, Amazon, Netflix, Tesla at one point falling so much, so rapidly, if everyone followed those trends and said, oh, don't invest in those companies anymore, then people would be missing out on big gains that the S&P 500 has made this year, ever since liberation, quote unquote, liberation day that President Trump announced with his tariffs. So these are normal things here that occurs. But what's important is, the AI is really accelerating the S&P 500 more than any other stocks. And that I'll have to get into another day. But again, here we go. Netflix stock dragged other techs lower, dropping some 10%, just as I stated earlier, thanks in part to the Brazil tax dispute. So yeah, that's really interesting. Let's get into why, or what that is about. What is the Brazil tax dispute? So apparently there's an extra tax in Brazil, which caused that earnings miss. So Netflix reported about $11.5 billion in revenue, just shy of Bloomberg's estimates of 11.52. So not too far off, like very close. But here's the thing: Netflix said they were aiming for 11.53 billion. So definitely a little bit less than they were hoping for. They forecasted 6.87% on earnings per share. They came in at about $1 less than that. So that's a huge loss in earnings per share. So yeah, they really missed on a lot of marks here. Let's check out an analysis from Bloomberg or Yahoo Finance, because they do a really good job kind of analyzing what really happened with Netflix. Because from what I saw with Netflix, they had Elon Musk was tweeting about basically saying ditch Netflix because of they were prescribing a woke agenda, and he was telling people to unsubscribe, or basically unsubscribe from your subscription. And that has to have an effect on the stock as well. So here we go. All trends are looking strong for Netflix despite Q3 earnings miss. So this is saying why they're going to do well. And Netflix is one of the, if not the number one streaming company in the world, if definitely in the United States. I don't want to say the world, but definitely in the United States. So I don't see them going anywhere at all. But here we go. Let's see what this Brazilian tax dispute is about.
Yeah, just some more commentary here about this dispute with the Brazilian tax authorities yielding lower margins than anticipated. The company does guide to Q4 operating margin of 23.9%. That is lower than the 24.2% street account estimate. But some other areas of strength here. The company talking about its ads business, saying they are now on track to more than double our ads revenue in 2025. And they concluded the U.S. upfront with commitments more than doubling this year, talking about the greater opportunity they have with their new ad tools and how.
That's a good point, because they have different plans now with having more advertising, more ads in their streaming, so people have to pay more to avoid those ads. So that's definitely going to accelerate a lot as well. Definitely agree with that.
That should enable them to create a better experience for members and for advertisers. One note here about AI, since there's been so much talk about generative AI and the potential threat of Sora to IP rights, the company says in its letter to shareholders, we're leveraging Gen AI to further enhance the member experience by improving the quality of recommendations and content discovery. Also saying we're empowering creators with a broad set of Gen AI tools to help them achieve their visions and deliver even more impactful titles for members. So really leaning into AI here, as opposed to talking about being fearful of copyright infringement or IP infringement. So talking a little bit about competition as well. No comments in this letter to shareholders about any interest in big acquisitions, but I'm sure there'll be questions about that on the call.
Okay. Apologies for that video, because that did not describe anything about the Brazilian tax dispute. Let's check this this one here. See, this kind of
is the reaction that we're seeing because of this one-off from the Brazilian tax authorities?
It seems that way, although again, it's a crazy time in Hollywood. You know, taking a step back, there is competition coming from everywhere: YouTube, Twitch, AI, new AI services. But you know, if you take a breath, you look at the third quarter slate. They had incredible engagement across the board. You know, they had K-pop Demon Hunters, the most popular movie in the history of the service.
325 million views, it says in the press release.
New Squid Game episode.
And this is exactly why Netflix isn't going anywhere. They have a huge quantity of movies, television shows. One of my favorites is Seinfeld. That's been an old iconic sitcom, one of the most popular sitcoms in the United States, his television history, and they have that on there. So they have types of shows for every type of viewer, no matter what your interests are. And this Demon K or Demon Lovers or whatever that show was called, one of the most, or their most popular streamed movie ever. This is why they're not going anywhere. And Netflix has proven to be very innovative with the times.
You jump on there now, you got new Wednesday episodes. The franchise are all doing really well. At the same time, all these investments they've made in live programming, WWE, boxing, you know, all of that is starting to really pay off. They're going to have their first NFL games coming this Christmas. So, you know, I think from a strategic programming platform, you have to say that things are going well for Netflix.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at, I guess they're talking about one fight here. Was it the Alvarez and Crawford fight?
Yeah, again, they're not talking about this Brazilian. What is this tax about? Brazil tax. Let me just Google it, because it seems like all these people don't want to cover it, because it's probably more complicated than people are letting on. So let's just cover this real quick, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So let's see. Reuters usually does a good job with kind of explaining all the details here. So drop as the Brazilian tax dispute hits earnings. So looks like they had to pay more in tax. That's what it seems like. So let's see. So it fell 5.6%. We know that. Come on. Let's see if it's all about tax disputes. Let's try to do Control F here. Okay, here we go. So Netflix was, here we go. This is perfect. Netflix reported on operating margin of 28% in the third quarter without the Brazilian tax expense of roughly $619 million. The margin would have exceeded the company's guidance of 31.5%. It said, adding that it did not expect the matter to have a material impact on future results. So all things considered, from Pescatore, yep. All things considered, this was another robust quarter despite a blip due to unforeseen expense. Okay, so it looks like the tax on Brazil seemed to have an effect in let's see, having them fall short by 3 percentage points. 9.30, a little over than 3%. So definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, let's go to the meme stocks, because this is something I'm really curious about. Let's check out these meme stocks here. And so they don't talk about it here. Okay. Let's go into this here. Here we go. So Meme stocks surge as investors pile back into speculative trading. And this was really interesting because companies like Beyond Meat and Krispy Kreme and GoPro are considered meme stocks, which I had no idea. I mean, the Beyond Meat rose. Here we go. I was shocked when I was watching this live in the stock market right now. Rose by more than 95% on Wednesday before pairing gains. Krispy Kreme and GoPro rallied by more than 20% and 14%, excuse me. Obviously now it's taken a dip, but yeah, meme stocks have been absolutely crushing it. I mean, Beyond Meat has surged more than 900% over the past 5 days. I don't know why they're trying to do this, like why this is happening. It's really fascinating. Because this is kind of something that seems to happen every few years. We saw this happen in 2021 with GameStop and Reddit and all of that, kind of this revolution of tons of buyers investing in meme stocks. And what's fascinating is that today was, I think, the highest on record for speculating on meme stocks. I mean, if I have to find this number, but it was unbelievable. 35 million. So retailers bought almost $35 million in Beyond Meat stock on Tuesday, notching the stock's biggest single day purchase ever. So actually, excuse me, it's that stock's not tons of meme stocks, but that one in general. $35 million. It's just fascinating to me because meme stocks to me seems very similar to gambling, because we've seen tons of the meme stocks, coins, meme coin, Bitcoin memes, all that stuff get pulled by the owner, and they rake in all the cash and you have nothing. And we've seen this story so many times. So it's shocking how they're able to pull in so many investors. But regardless, that's my own opinion. So let's see a quote from, I don't know, like a quote here. So there's a quote by Stuckey. The Russian meme stocks has really been led on by, these types of opportunities, or in my opinion, risks in the market where companies that don't have any positive earnings, maybe they're losing money, really leading markets higher over the last 12 months. And that's one thing I could see why people want to invest some money into a meme stock. Kind of makes them put cash. Like if you're riding the momentum so high, it's an exciting thrill, especially with something like a Krispy Kreme stock where it's sort of a joke, and all your friends, they just want to participate in this just for fun. And it's really fascinating because I don't understand it, but it's definitely a thing, it looks like. So yeah, I'm going to see if I can find any more research on meme stocks from financial analysts, because I'm really curious why this trend occurs, like why people want to invest our hard-earned cash in these meme stocks. It's really interesting. Meme stocks. We're gonna type that in here and see if we find anything fascinating here. Okay, this is interesting. So many use meme stocks options when they can't use margins. So for those of you who don't know, when you're trading on margin, it's very rare that a brokerage will allow that to happen, because when you trade on margin, it means that you're trading on cash or income that you don't have. So let's say you're trading on a position, $200 on a certain position to go up or down, but you don't actually have that $200. And let's say you lose that, and that stock goes crashing down and you lose that, then you owe the brokerage money. So most brokerages are not going to do that. They're not going to allow you to do that. So it seems like, according to the title of this video, that meme stocks allow people to be more speculative, more like experiment with how they can trade, maybe learn like what works, what doesn't work. That's my hunch. But let's watch this video and see what Mike No says.
Has been beyond belief this week. Just today, it was up as much as 112% and down nearly 30%, closing at basically the flat line. Still, the stock has more than quintupled since Monday, sparked by the inclusion in the new meme ETF. The ETF is down more than 9% since it started trading on October 8th under the ticker MEME. Top holdings besides Beyond Meat include Navitas Semiconductor, Critical Metals Corp, Open Door, Quantum. Mike Coe has the action. Hey, Mike, what do you
I actually can't believe there's a meme ETF. That is wild.
looking at?
Yeah, there are a lot of these meme stocks that are catching fire in the options market today. Donut, Krispy Kreme, this one traded almost 70 times its average daily put volume today. Beyond Meats, which you just referenced, this thing traded over 11 times its average daily put volume. Sweet Greens, this one traded almost 3 times its average daily call volume. And Clover Health, also almost 2 times its average daily call volume. Some of the activity that we saw in Beyond Meats, which traded over 3.3 million contracts today, it should be said, were buyers of the October 24th weekly. That's this coming Friday. 3 strike puts. I saw a block of 5,000 of those trade for 26 cents. Obviously, that is a bet to the downside. I think a lot of people are using options in these things where they can't use margin. A lot of these stocks are less than $5 a share, and so this is the only way to get leverage. But it's all speculation.
This is a really great point that he makes. I totally missed this when I thought about this before the video started. So when you're doing options trading, most investors don't have the capital to trade options, because when you trade options, for those who don't know, trading options involves buying at least one contract for 100 shares. So when you buy a contract for 100 shares, you are using statistical data analysis to project 30 days into the future or even higher into the future where the price of a stock will be. So you can buy calls or sell puts and et cetera, or short calls or short puts. So I'm not going to go into all the details of what the options trading is. That's a whole other video, but that's kind of the basic analysis of it. And for stocks like Nvidia, like really popular stocks, for example, I'll pull a calculator up so you guys can kind of see what I'm trying to point out right here. So if you want to, let's say, buy a stock of something like Nvidia, for example, and let's say, oh, you're bullish on Nvidia because you believe it's going to go up by $2 in the next 30 days. So this is how it would work. So you would see the stock live. Now, obviously, it's not moving too much because it's after hours as I'm recording this, but it's 180.28. So in order to purchase an options contract, what you have to do is you have to have the capital of 100 shares of Nvidia. So that would mean that you would need to have $18,028 in capital to purchase this options contract. So what this gentleman is explaining is that many people are purchasing options with meme stocks because it is much cheaper and much easier to purchase 100 shares of a Krispy Kreme, for example. So 100 shares of Krispy Kreme is $400. Much more affordable. I don't want to say it's a smart investment. It's very speculative, but a much more affordable to gamble with, or at least have that income. The other stock. Let's go into I forgot the name of it. I think it was the something meat stock. BYND. Yeah, so that would only be like $358. So in that sense, it's I guess some people are using it as a way of practicing options contracts, practicing how it works. But the thing is, it's not necessarily a smart investment, because with data analysis, you analyze the delta, so the percentage of what's likely to happen, what of a contract going through or not going through. So you analyze those positions and you make the investment properly. But the thing is, with meme stocks, they're so volatile. When they increase up, it goes through the roof. Like, look at this right here with Donut, it's 33, almost 34 times as high. So this sort of investment, in my opinion, isn't a logical or smart way to understand the market. But that's just my opinion.
Activity that we saw in Beyond Meats, which makes sense. Obviously, that is a bet to the downside. I think a lot of people are using options in these things where they can't use margin. A lot of these stocks are less than $5 a share, and so this is the only way to get leverage. But it's all speculation.
Of course, Mike, thank you. The entire stock market is basically.
Okay, looks like this is the end of that video. So yeah, the meme stocks. Let me see if I can find something from Yahoo Finance with the meme stocks. This is really interesting. Actually, you know what? That's all right. I think we'll cover that. Enough of that. Here we go, right here. So President Trump announced massive new sanctions on Russian oil. Jeez. Let's actually cover that because this seems like it's breaking news. I don't have that in my notes, but looks like this just occurred after the market close.
Why do you believe, Mr. President, that the sanctions that you're announcing today will push Putin to the...
Well, I don't know that they will. I think that they'll certainly have an impact there.
Now let me replay that. It's kind of hard to understand that reporter's question here.
Why do you believe, Mr. President, that the sanctions that you're announcing today will push Putin to the...
Well, I don't know that they will. I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push... hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes two to tango, as they say.
Do you still believe that Putin wants to take all of Ukraine?
I always felt that way. I always felt he wanted to. When I was in my first term, I was with, I was very close to him, relatively speaking. It was harder because of the Russia hoax. But I would talk to President Putin about Ukraine, and it was the apple of his eye. I'd say it was the apple of his eye, but it would have never happened. He knew the consequences were too great. When we had a rigged election and all of a sudden I wasn't there, he said, wow. I think he looked at Afghanistan.
All right, so it looks like he's just going into some, political rhetoric there. So, okay, here we go. So according to the CNN article, U.S. sanctions sanctions Russia's two largest oil companies and calls on Moscow to agree to an immediate ceasefire. So for those who don't know, obviously Russia, Ukraine, that's been going on for like 4 years now. I mean, it's unbelievable how long this war's been going on. So this is a pretty, it's not as too surprising because the United States has imposed sanctions on Russia for a very long time. So we'll see what happens. It doesn't seem like that's going to really move or budge Putin too much, honestly. We'll see what the finance analysts have to say about this because here we go. So oil jumps after U.S. sanctions major Russian producers. And this is, pretty obvious considering if you make oil hard to get, the price is going to go up. This is inevitable. And this is one thing why I really love finance news because it goes beyond the headlines. Like people may think, oh, Trump's sanctioning Russia to get Putin to the negotiating table. Okay, what's next? But what Yahoo Finance and a lot of the analyzing of finance news in particular is that it covers the stocks, how the price changes, how it affects the economy, how it affects the price of gold, how it affects the power of the dollar, the leverage that the dollar has as a world reserve currency. It connects all of these dots, and that's something that you don't really see in the general, the general news article, in my view. So let's try to understand let's unpack this. What's really going on right here? So the Trump administration announced the sanctions on Russia's biggest oil producers, rolling out its first major package of financial punishments on President Putin's economy as part of a fresh push to end the war in Ukraine. And we've seen President Trump use sanctions in a lot of ways. President Trump used sanctions against India because India was purchasing oil from Russia or selling oil from Russia to Russia, one or the other. But regardless, India was still conducting business and had no sanctions on Russia. They were still doing business with each other. And President Trump was trying to punish India for having business with Russia, which as a sort of, or pretty much an ally to the United States seems very strange to me. So President Trump is not shy with using sanctions, and we all know this. So the decision to sanction Rosneft and Lukoil marked a U-turn for President Donald Trump, who had held off of major sanctions. Oh, excuse me. So I was incorrect about that. So he actually held off on major sanctions and announced last week he would meet with Putin in the coming weeks. So Trump said he would meet with Putin in the coming weeks, and then now all of a sudden, before even meeting with him, he announces these sanctions right away. So in the last day, Trump indicated a change of heart, saying he didn't want a wasted meeting. Okay. So oil prices surged in the post-settlement trading news of the fresh sanctions, international benchmark Brent surging 5%. Now, this is really fascinating because Lukoil was also the second company being sanctioned, and that's something that's definitely in the United States. We use Lukoil oil. I mean, gas stations are everywhere of Lukoil. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to affect prices right now in the United States. And it's really fascinating because gas prices, I mean, actually, let's look it up because we've seen a lot of things go up. But let's check what the gas prices have been on a national scale since President Trump has been elected in 2025. Let's see. So gas prices have been fluctuating with recent data showing an average of $3.06 a gallon. Okay. So has it gone up since last year? Because I'm really curious if it's gone up or not, considering what's been going on. So it actually hasn't, according to this AI quick research here. They've been decreasing with the average price of gallon of regular gasoline falling over the past week to $3.04. So it has been going down. But with the sanction, I'm really curious if this could affect you and I, our gas prices. The sanction. Because I would think it could, but let's see. So I like to read an article rather than relying on this AI real quick, but the AI review, the quick summary says, yes, sanctions on Russia gas can affect U.S. gas prices because Russia is a major global oil exporter and sanctions disrupt the global supply, leading to higher prices worldwide that also impact the U.S. market. So this is really interesting. I don't think, let's see, this is 2022, this is an old article. I don't think they're going to talk about too much about the effect it has on the United States. But yeah, this is really interesting. I'm really curious to see if this affects the price of gas in the United States. I would think it would because we're already seeing, I mean, I know tariffs are different from sanctions. I mean, sanctions are much more unilaterally like boom, like economic punishment compared to tariffs, but both are economically repressive in my view. But I'm really curious to see what happens with this news, where this goes. Trump says, I just felt it was time. Okay. What? All right. Not too much there. Okay. So of course, Ukraine welcomed the move. Obviously, they have the United States as an ally, so of course they're going to welcome the United States putting sanctions on Russia. That's no surprise there. So let's move on to gold right here. So gold steadies, Bitcoin plunges as debasement trade rally comes to a halt. So next topic on our news today for the recap is gold continuing its decline after the worst intraday drop in more than 12 years. So the worst day intraday drop in more than 12 years actually occurred October 21st, yesterday, not today. But prices have stabilized somewhat, but still, obviously, the decline was continuing today. So it dropped 5.5% yesterday as the US dollar strengthened. So it's kind of an inverse relationship. Gold goes up when the dollar goes down. And that's why we've seen the gold have a whopping, like I said earlier, 65% year-to-date climb or acceleration in value because global central banks' demand for gold has increased a lot, and investors have been running to gold as a safe haven instead of American United States Treasury bonds for safety. And that's the whole reason why back in April, President Trump was kind of laying off his global sweep of tariffs. He's still implementing a lot of tariffs, but the global sweep of tariffs back in April is the reason why he put that 9-day pause to begin with, was because people were investing in gold, taking their money out of US bonds, putting it in gold instead of putting it in the United States Treasury bonds. And that's why that famous quote of President Trump saying off of on a microphone that the bond market was getting yippy, that's the reason why. That really is one of the reasons why he put that 9-day pause and sort of tacoed. Trump always chickens out. That sort of phrase became very popular. So let's see. So according to a chief investment officer for UBS, quote, we have highlighted the potential for volatility given the scale and the speed of the rally, but we believe precious metals should remain supported by a combination of macroeconomic, fundamental, and momentum-driven factors. Okay, that's a lot of very wordy vocab there that honestly most people would read that and not know what's going on, to be honest. But I think basically from what I get from that is that despite this volatility in gold the last 48 hours, as a whole on a macro level, it is still generally a good investment. That's kind of what I get from that. And again, the reason why I think gold is going to continue to rise, and they say in this article, is the inflation is going to continue to rise. So we haven't had a jobs report in a very long time. I'm trying to see it here. Like, let's see. So it looks like the unemployment rate might come out, but there hasn't been a major jobs report or a CPI report due to the government shutdown that has been ongoing for over 3 weeks now, with no resolution in sight. And because of this, we haven't had key data on the jobs reports and jobs numbers, CPI, PPI, all that important data that the stock market reacts to. So, but here's the thing. One thing we can rely on is more expected rate cuts. The Federal Reserve has a special mandate, and that mandate is to keep inflation at its target of 2% and maximum employment. Now, what we're seeing now is a fear of stagflation, where there's high levels of unemployment and high levels of inflation. And many people are wondering, what is the Fed going to prioritize? Well, they lowered interest rates in their last meeting, which was expected. And they're going to continue to lower interest rates for the foreseeable future because they kept interest rates the same for most of 2025. So what this means is when you lower interest rates, inflation is going to accelerate. And when you have the impact of the tariffs, with corporations passing on the cost of the tariffs to the consumers, so from the importer's charge, corporations had to pay the importer charge, and then that importer charge is going to get passed down to the consumer through elevated prices. Hence, inflation is going to continue to rise. I spoke with a friend of mine about it, and even he realizes what's going on here with the price hike in everyday items like eggs, groceries, etc. And I think many people are going to start to realize this, and they are realizing it. I know it's a lot there, but I think this is just so important for Americans to realize this. And Bitcoin, I don't want to research Bitcoin too much. Not a huge fan of cryptocurrency, but that declined too, as you can see here. Okay, so Bitcoin has risen 15% year to date, so pretty high as well for Bitcoin. So yeah, that's pretty much the main news there. So let's check out this video here, actually. Oh, sorry about that.
Joining us now, Michael Gousset, flocking to precious metals, cryptocurrency as well, with gold, silver, Bitcoin all reaching new highs in recent days. But moves in the Treasury market don't necessarily suggest the so-called debasement trade is gaining steam.
I apologize for that. This is a October 13th video, so I don't want to show something that's not accurate here. This is kind of older news with gold. So let's go to the next article here. So Trump demands cattle ranchers lower prices. This is going to be really interesting. Even though like he's the one putting tariffs on the farms, but okay. Demands cattle ranchers. I'll just put that in there. We'll see. So let's see. Usually Bloomberg has a paywall, so I'm not sure if I can actually read this article. Yeah. Let's see. We'll say they can. Yeah, I can't read that. Okay, let's go into here. Trump calls for cheaper cattle, more grazing land in effort to trim beef prices. So yeah, so beef has gone up. Let's look up the numbers real quick because I'm like 90% sure prices on beef have gone up. Let's see. So yeah, so the prices of beef has gone up significantly, with some posting indicating record highs in prices of meat or beef. So beef is currently at a record high, with ground beef prices up substantially over the past year. Okay, so this makes sense. And so we can check. So let's understand why this is. So what's going on right here? So some of the reasons for it: the high costs for ranchers to feed, water, and the cow, all that, the cattle. And then, but here's the thing: trade right here, trade and tariffs restrictions. New tariffs on beef imports from countries like Brazil, combined with a temporary halt on cattle imports from Mexico, have also put upward pressure on prices. And this is a thing that's really interesting, because a lot of farmers have actually spoken out against these tariffs from what I've seen. I haven't researched it too much, I'll be honest, but they have spoken out about it. So let's see if there's anything in this article about it. So he wants, obviously, to cut the cost of beef, urging cattle ranchers to lower the cost on beef, even though that's not really how business works. You can't just tell a group of people to just lower prices, because if they wanted to lower prices to sell more, and they would do it because that would be good business. But that's clearly not how this works. So earlier this week, Trump said the administration was considering importing beef from Argentina, as a means of lowering record high consumer beef prices. This is something that's really interesting, because this is going to go directly, again, this is going to hurt U.S. farmers, because they're not going to get the benefits of making money on selling beef. But here it is, and that's exactly what I suspected. The suggestion angered U.S. ranchers. U.S. farmers also recently lost out to Argentina on soybean sales to China. So why does there's so much information here. I didn't know where to start. Let's continue down here, and we're going to see. So cattle and beef prices have surged after a years-long drought, burned up grazing land, and hiked feeding costs. Okay, so that makes sense. So that's part of it too. So I don't want to just put it all on tariffs. That definitely does not help lower prices. But considering that there was a years-long drought, that definitely put more upward pressure on the prices than only tariffs alone. So I want to give some credence there. But I'm really curious to see which U.S. farmers were angered about this, because this is what I've heard about too. So I want to get the facts right before I make any judgments or any legitimate claims about what the farmers say or anything like that. Okay, so U.S. farmers on Monday criticized, this is a couple days ago, criticized Trump's suggestion that the country may import more beef from Argentina. It's really funny, because ideally, President Trump claims to be using tariffs as a way of protectionism to help American businesses grow, have more profits and all that. But if he's suggesting importing beef from Argentina, that would be the opposite of that. That would be more of a globalization of the economy and all that. So it's kind of interesting how that happened. And plus, they lost out to the South American nation on soybean sales to top buyer China. I have to look at more into that. I'm not 100% sure about that. But yeah, so last month, the Trump administration frustrated farmers by negotiating financial support for Argentina at a time when Argentina was selling soybeans to China, which has not bought any soy from the autumn U.S. harvest due to its trade conflict with Washington. Right. So China, for those who don't know, China said that they're not going to purchase soy from Washington. And I think, I'm trying to remember, President Trump responded with saying that we're not going to buy something from China. Let me look this up real quick. If he did respond at all. I'm pretty sure he did. A new bailout package for American farmers. Okay, maybe not. I don't want to waste too much time on this. So maybe, I think he said something verbally, but it wasn't obviously a legitimate executive order or anything like that. And I'm curious to see if there's anything about this, like the cattle and Trump more news about this or a video on it, because I'm really curious to see some more analysis on this. Oh man. Wow. Trump says cattle ranchers don't understand his policies after Argentina beef import plan backlash. And it's interesting because Argentina has a pretty right-wing leader, Javier Milei. So that's why President Trump is more, I would say, willing to do business with people like that. Yeah, the CICOT sending undocumented immigrants to CICOT, which was a right-wing leader in Bukele in El Salvador. So he definitely has seeks to have a strong relationship with more right-wing leaders, from what I've seen, at least. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen. Because, for example, Trump did a plan with Argentina, I believe, some sort of bailout, which is really wild. $40 billion exception to America First. I don't know if this involves. Obviously, MSNBC News are going to have a slight slant to being on the left. But let's see what PBS says about this, because Trump $20 billion lifeline to help its flailing economy. Wow. That's crazy. Through private banks and sovereign wealth funds. Okay, so it doesn't look like America First to me. Let's move on to our last news we're going to cover today. And that is the U.S. considering curbs on software-related exports to China. So let's find a video on this, because I think this is going to be more detailed. And obviously, this is more in response to the what's the term? To the I think China banning rare earth minerals to the United States. So. U.S. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's check this here. Let's check this out.
Eamon, what are we learning here?
Yeah, Scott, that's right. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just stopped and talked to some reporters here on the North Lawn of the White House. I asked him about that report earlier today that the U.S. is considering software curbs for China in retaliation for the Chinese action on trade. The Treasury Secretary said, yes, they are considering those kinds of software curbs. He said everything is on the table. He was also asked about Russia sanctions, and he signaled that something significant may be coming. Here's what the Treasury Secretary had to say just a short time ago.
We are going to either announce after the close this afternoon, or first thing tomorrow morning, a substantial pickup in Russia sanctions.
So there you heard the Treasury Secretary saying he's going to announce a substantial pickup in Russia sanctions. He didn't specify what.
Which did occur, by the way, which we covered earlier.
What that is, Scott.
It's interesting.
There have been a number of discussions in Washington around a bill up on Capitol Hill to increase sanctions on those who import Russian oil. Not clear if that would be part of what the Treasury Secretary is talking about, but he did say it could come after the close today, so that is in just about 20 minutes' time.
Well, we'll watch all of that. Obviously, the software news seems to be the most relevant, I think, to how the markets may take that. What's interesting, Eamon, like a name like Mike.
Especially because like software is going to impact AI, and like we've seen with AI, when NVIDIA got the exception to sell its products in China, do business there. NVIDIA really soared through the roof. So anything that involves software and AI, I think, is going to have a really big impact.
Microsoft is up, still up 2/3 of 1%. I've read some other things about a software component that Intel has in addition to chips. That stock's down 3%. But we'll see what ends up coming from that and if it has the same impact on some of the software players as it has at times over the chip names, which have obviously been in the news related to the same sort of headlines.
Yeah, and this is tricky for investors, Scott, because as you weigh all these headlines, you have to figure how much of this is sort of trade saber rattling ahead of the meeting next week, and how much of this is really actually on the table and actually likely to happen. We know that the president is departing for Malaysia on Friday. We know that the Treasury Secretary has said that he'll be having meetings with the Chinese delegation as early as this weekend. So all of this next couple of days in the run-up to those meetings could be both sides jockeying for position in those talks, saying, hey, if you're coming at us with this, as a reminder, we have that response ready to go. So
absolutely. He makes a great point here, because I think President Trump, if anything, he's used a lot of more verbal slants and attacks on China, like saying late last week, this is or even this week, this is a trade war, and we're going to back off, it's nothing. So using kind of these trade tactics for the market and all that, it's hard to really determine what is a true action against a country or just like a verbal kind of threat. So yeah, seems like that's everything that we're going to cover today. Please, again, these are the topics that I covered here. So like, share, subscribe to the channel. And obviously this is a live, so I know you can comment with us below live. I can't see comments right now. I'm trying to get another connection monitor set up pretty soon, so bear with me on that. But yeah, please subscribe to the channel and like it, and give me any suggestions you'd like for the show. And thank you all so much for listening.